Story 1. The Intruder on Christmas Eve. It was Christmas Eve in a quiet suburban neighborhood in Ohio. The Morgan family had just finished their annual tradition of watching It's a Wonderful Life and were heading to bed. The house was filled with the comforting smells of pine and freshly baked cookies, and the children, Ethan and Lily, were eagerly awaiting Santa's arrival. Around 2 a.m., Sarah Morgan woke up to the sound of faint rustling downstairs. At first, she assumed it was her cat playing with the Christmas ornaments. But as she listened closer, the noises became more deliberate. Footsteps and the faint creak of the front door opening. Her husband, Mike, grabbed a baseball bat from under the bed and cautiously made his way downstairs. Sarah stayed behind, clutching her phone and ready to call 911. As Mike descended the stairs, he saw the Christmas tree lights flickering, casting eerie shadows across the living room. To his horror, a man dressed in tattered clothes and wearing a ski mask was rummaging through the pile of gifts under the tree. Mike yelled, and the intruder froze. In the ensuing chaos, the man bolted through the front door, leaving behind a knife on the coffee table. The Morgans later learned that several homes in the neighborhood had been targeted that night. The police speculated that the man had been watching houses for weeks, waiting for Christmas Eve when families would be distracted. The Morgans installed a security system the next day, but the memory of that night still haunts them every holiday season. Story 2. The Haunted Christmas Ornament. In 2015, the Andersons, a family from Salem, Massachusetts, decided to visit a local antique store to pick up some unique decorations for their Christmas tree. Among the items, they found a beautiful glass ornament with intricate, hand-painted designs. The shopkeeper mentioned it was part of an estate sale, but didn't elaborate further. Excited by their find, the Andersons hung the ornament in the center of their tree. That night, strange things began to happen. The family's dog, Max, refused to enter the living room, growling and barking at the tree from the doorway. Later, when they were in bed, they heard faint whispers coming from downstairs. Mr. Anderson investigated, but found nothing unusual. The next morning, the ornament had moved from its original spot to a lower branch. Assuming it had simply slipped, they repositioned it. But over the next few days, the whispers grew louder, and the ornament would shift locations every night. The final straw came on Christmas Eve when the Andersons woke up to find the ornament shattered in the middle of the living room floor, despite no one hearing it fall. Inside the shards, they found a small, folded piece of paper with the words, "I'm still here." Terrified, they disposed of the ornament and contacted the antique store, only to discover it had closed permanently. To this day, the Andersons avoid antique decorations, and they've never experienced anything similar since. Story 3. The Silent Hitchhiker. It was a cold Christmas night in 2003, and Mark, a truck driver from Texas, was making a long haul to deliver goods before the holiday weekend ended. The highways were nearly deserted, with most people home celebrating with their families. Around 11 p.m., Mark noticed a figure standing on the side of the road, near a broken-down car. Feeling the holiday spirit, he decided to pull over and offer help. The figure was a young woman, dressed in an old-fashioned red coat and holding a small suitcase. She explained that her car had broken down, and she needed a ride to the next town. Mark agreed, and she climbed into the passenger seat. They made small talk during the drive, but Mark noticed something strange. The woman's hands were ice cold, and she seemed to avoid answering questions about her family or where she was headed. When they reached the town, she asked to be dropped off at a small, darkened house. Mark watched as she walked to the front door and disappeared inside. The next day, curious about the woman, he drove back to the house to check on her. An elderly man answered the door and listened to Mark's story with a somber expression. The man explained that his daughter had died in a car accident on Christmas night 10 years earlier, on the same stretch of highway where Mark had picked her up. Shaken, Mark never drove that route again on Christmas, haunted by the memory of the silent hitchhiker.